everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bagels and Locks. I am your host, Brandon Rothenberg, alongside my dog, Jason Silverstone. It is good to have you guys back. Jason, I think we're kind of stepping away from this heat wave that was disgustingly hot over the area, the West Bloomfield area, and all across the great state of Michigan. For me, that was difficult because I'm on a golf course and no one likes playing in 95-degree heat. But Jay, what's going on with you? How are things going? Are you watching anything? Are you listening to anything? There's a new Eminem, Kid Cudi song that just came out.
There was
What's
actually.
going on with you?
Not much, man. Just been hanging out. I guess you want to talk a little music, we can. I did listen to Eminem and Kid Cudi's song. It's I didn't really know what to expect from that because I just couldn't really envision them on a track together. I don't know if you've listened to it yet or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, middle school me was like jumping of excitement to hear that song, and then 22-year-old me, not too excited. I was more so scared of what could come because the both of them have sort of tailed off as of late in their careers, but it was actually pretty good. I also listened to the new Juice WRLD album that dropped, his posthumous album. And I was actually really surprised with how much I liked that one too. So some good music's been coming out. Just been hanging out. I cashed big this weekend in the UFC, went undefeated. All plays were even or plus money, so you love to hear that. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, that's pretty much been what's going on with me. Brandon, I see you're wearing something new, something flashy. Why don't you tell us about that little thing you got on?
Well, it's funny. So I'm wearing this, for a specific reason. So our episode today, we got a great show for you guys. We have on Xavier Warren, who was recently drafted the third round, 92nd pick by the Milwaukee Brewers. He is out of Central Michigan University. We have him on later in the show. And because of that, and leading up to baseball here within the next few days, even though we've already seen some matchups between teams amongst themselves, I figured why not wear the Cubs jacket, bring it on out. Funny story, though, about this jacket. A couple days ago, I was bored, like probably anyone who's listening right now. Nothing to do, is the weekend, and I hit up one of my friends, our good friend Eli Weil, and I suggested, why don't we go thrift shopping? Because what else is there to do during a pandemic?
And it's your favorite Macklemore quote.
And it's my favorite Macklemore quote, sure, and song. So we went to the Salvation Army on Orchard Lake. Shout out the Salvation Army on Orchard Lake Road. And we walked in, and within 5 minutes, this jacket was found. Okay, but here's the interesting part, was that my eyes did not lay on this jacket first. Eli found it first. And he held it up, and he was like, yo, Brandon, look at this. And I turned around, and I looked, and I was instantly like, you're not getting that. That is mine. That is my jacket. Because it is incredibly hard to find old school vintage sports, anything team related, from the 90s, is really hard to find, to come by these days. It's rare and it's expensive. And I really like it. Vintage clothes, jerseys and things like that. So anyway, we found this jacket, and I told him, I was like, Eli, you gotta let me have it. And he knew that it was more important to me than it was to him. And he let me have it. So there you have it.
What
it's
a good
in
friend.
Spanking brand new condition, Cubs. It's I don't know when this is from. My guess is gotta be the early 90s. Mid to late 90s. It's not really the older Cubs logo. It's kind of it's not like the Cubs logo has changed by any means. But to me it seems like it's definitely from the 90s or so. And yeah, we just gotta wait for the weather to cool down a little bit, and then I can sport this jacket outside. But for today's episode, I figured why not, considering we got Xavier on. And speaking of Xavier and baseball and the Cubs, Jay, let's break it down. Let's get right to it. Some new news in regards to players that have tested positive. Some of those names include Aroldis Chapman, Kenley Jansen, Freddie Freeman, Salvador Perez, Miguel Sano, and the Tigers' own Daniel Norris, which is really interesting to me because he's one of the most, I don't know how much you know about him, Jason, but
Oh, well, he
he's
lives in a
incredibly,
van. That's why I'm not
yeah,
surprised.
well, he's very laid back and a mellow kind of guy. So something about me was like, there's no way he was going out to do anything during this pandemic. I know he surfs a lot, and granted, like there's MLB summer camp now, so I don't know how he got it or how anyone gets it per se, but uh, I was a little bit thrown back by that. He said he's had it for 3 weeks now, so this was before
Hmm.
summer camp. So he could have been, somewhere else, obviously, and got it before camp, but he hasn't exposed anyone else. He hasn't been in camp. He hasn't reported. But yes, between, Chapman and Freddie Freeman, Salvador Perez is a big name, but the Royals aren't necessarily going anywhere. Same with the Tigers, but who knows, 60-game season. Miguel Sano, though, third baseman or first base. He'll probably play first base now because they just signed Josh Donaldson. But anyway, Minnesota Twins. So there's a lot of big name guys that have tested positive. So we've talked about this before, and I want to say it again, but how do you feel teams are going to respond when it comes, a week, a couple of days leading up to the season, and you have these big name players that are testing positive, and where does a team go from there?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we've touched on this before a few times, but I mean, it sucks for those teams and for those players. It's really unfortunate, but you just gotta soldier on and take on the season. I mean, these guys have been waiting and dying to get out there and play ball, and that's what they're gonna have the opportunity to do. And gotta kind of keep the ship afloat, if you will, until those key players come back and help them out. And some people, we've talked about this as well. Some people are very surprised that a lot of players have tested positive and stuff, and others not so surprised because as you start to test these guys who haven't been tested, um, over the past couple of months, it's very likely you're going to have some positives, as many people know if you just watch the news or tune in online. This is a pandemic. It's a big deal. It's impacting a lot of people. So um you know at least a lot of these guys have been testing positive a couple weeks or so before the season, so hopefully they can kick it and be healthy and ready to go either before the season starts or only a couple of games in. um, I'd be more concerned about the guys who we don't know that have it yet, that might get it like a couple days before it starts or something like that, because that'll be a bigger impact because they have to be out for at least the 2-week quarantine period, and then I believe test negative for it twice before they can play.
Right,
So
and then we'd be talking missing at least within a 2-week span, at least 12 games, give or
which
take
is a
a
fifth
day
a
off here or
season.
there. Right, which now becomes a fifth of the season. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays into it plays into effect during the season when it starts. What I was thinking too is take, for example, the Tigers, right? I mean, we're not a team that's going to contend by any means. Let's say we have CJ Crone.
Did you see
And
that DM I sent you today with CJ Crone on
the
Twitter?
catch, the Riley Green catch in
Well, the
left
Riley
field,
Green catch, but also, did you see how much power Crone generated off that like golf swing, like
it was
one-handed,
an
pretty
inch. It was
much?
an inch off the ground. That
Yeah.
ball, his swing. Yeah, yes, we are gonna get to that. I did
Okay.
see it. But so I was gonna say, let's say you take the Tigers, a team that's not gonna contend. Miguel Cabrera and CJ Crone test positive, right? Hypothetically, let's just say, or anybody that would play first base for the Tigers test positive. Well, would Spencer Torkelson, make his debut, quote unquote, and play first base? Like in that situation, it seems highly unlikely, especially using Torkelson as an example. But that's what I wonder is you have all these guys, you have all these minor league guys in camp right now, right?
Hmm.
Because there is no minor league season. So because of that, teams are having their top 12 to 15 prospects max, top 10 to 12 prospects in camp with them, so that they can get their reps in and face pitching at the major league level, quote unquote, in camp. And this is in place of having a minor league season. But the numbers, the player pool numbers, when the season actually starts, is going to drastically decrease to almost half of that, because right now it's 60. And, major league teams don't carry 60 guys around during the season. So what I'm thinking is what is going to take place when you could have a number of guys on your team. You could have like 7 guys, have potentially your whole roster have the virus, because one, it's that contagious, and if
Hmm.
one person has it and doesn't know that they have it, spread it to everyone else. I mean, you could be screwed. And I think these are a lot of things that teams, I'm sure, have considered and thought, well, what do we do in this situation? But I mean, what you know what I mean, Jason? It's
Yeah.
unheard of, but it's possible. And as a team, where do you go from that?
Well, you also have to consider, let's say one guy has it, then 2 guys have it, then the majority of your roster has it. The league very well may shut down again completely, because let's say, by the time you test positive, they've played 2 or 3 other teams already, and those guys could have it. So, I mean, it's very scary, and you do raise a good point. And I think there's really, I mean, the Tigers are obviously in a very unique situation compared to other teams in the league, but I don't see any harm in putting Torkelson out there, or any of those younger guys in a shortened season where I mean, they're not going to really make any waves or really do much. Might as well have him go out there and get that experience and get those reps in. And if he's the talent that everyone says he should be, who knows? He may be mildly successful with it. But I do think you raised some good points, and it'll definitely be something that fans and players alike and owners and managers are going to have to definitely look out for.
Well, we spoke last week. We talked about having an asterisk on the NBA season, and over in Major League Baseball, again, you have this asterisk. But I think it makes an even greater difference considering you have the minor leagues that are canceled. So if you think about it, if the virus wasn't a thing, if none of this was a thing, Torkelson wouldn't see the light of day in the lineup for the Tigers till at least 2022 at the very
Yeah.
least, right? So I don't know why Major League Baseball hasn't came out with some sort of rule or platform, I guess you could say, that would allow teams to have some of these guys uh, play without having a year of service, basically. So, come 20 games into the season, we have 40 games left. Like, I would think Torkelson, like Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning, all these highly regarded Tigers prospects, or this goes for any team, but in general, we're just talking about the Tigers here, for them to basically be called up and play. But at the same time, it's not a full season. There's a lot. There's asterisks here in Major League Baseball is a little bit different than over in the NBA side of things, when they've granted already played the majority of their season and they just have 8 games left and then it's playoffs. So, I guess we will have to see. We'll have to see how many players are testing positive. Like you had said, Jason, there is a chance, and I hate to think this, but they just cancel the season or put it off for a couple weeks. Who knows? Nobody knows, because no one saw this coming. So who knows what's next? Um, but before we move on to a little bit of basketball discussion, and actually after this, we will have our interview with Xavier Warren. But teams have been playing themselves. I've been watching. Tigers have been broadcasting. They started it on Saturday, and there was no umpire, but it was amazing because there's no one in the stands. they weren't playing any sort of filler music, like no recordings of a crowd. They didn't have anyone. You'd see them hit a foul ball, and it's not like there was any employees or anything running down to grab the balls, which I'm sure at a later point in time they were. But what I thought was interesting was they had they announced players' names, walking up to bat, their walk-up music, and basically all the aspects of a game without any fans. So, Jason, I'm curious to gauge your thoughts on this. Maybe what do you think was going through the minds of players? Is this really affecting them? And also, too, what we've seen and we've sent back and forth is these new like catcher cams
Mm-hmm.
and the umpire cams, which is really cool. And we've seen this. A couple of teams are doing this lately. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Um, I mean, from what I've seen, I haven't obviously been watching the way you have, but I've seen a lot of clips on Twitter. As we mentioned that catch and CJ Crone earlier. Seen a few other catches and stuff, but I've seen a lot of videos of players dancing on base, just laughing, just having. I mean, these guys are just having fun out there. You love to see it, and shows that baseball is coming back a little. But I feel like a scrimmage between your own team can only be oh so effective up until a certain point. It'll obviously be different when they're actually playing against other teams. I feel like there's more they have more of a yearning to win. There's more of an edge of competition when you're in an actual game compared to a scrimmage, and that's kind of why I feel like kind of seeing things be taken a little lightly and stuff. But I mean, it's got to just be fun to be a player and get out there right now. I know your good friend Dan Dickerson is back calling the games, so I'm sure you missed his voice and hearing him.
Yeah, yeah. It's been nice just opening up the laptop and boom, you got the Tigers playing. And at early times too, they were playing today at like 10 a.m. I turned it on. So it's great to hear the voices, the broadcasters, to hear the sound, the popping of the glove, man, is crazy considering there's no
Other
fans in the
noise,
stands.
yeah.
No, there's no other noise. The crack of the bat is just awesome. These are some of the things that we've talked about in prior episodes. The things that we were excited and looking forward to, which also now the NBA, they're practicing and scrimmaging against one another, but they haven't televised anything like that yet. So I'm sure soon enough we're going to start to hear some trash talking, not just the shoes squeaking on the court. So there's a lot of excitement there. Like you had said, Tigers, man, have been a walk-in highlight reel with the Riley Green catch today, which was all over social media. Derek Hill, who was, I think, the Tigers' first round pick back in 2014, I want to say. I'm sure you saw that insane diving catch in center field, and like the ball like trickled out of his glove, and then he ended up barehanding it. It was really
Hmm.
cool to see. So the Tigers are flashing some leather, making some impressions here early on when basically nothing matters. Doesn't even matter. These games still count. They're just playing each other,
Exactly.
but it's still great to see, and a great sign for the future too. Within the next couple of years, Casey Mize has been pitching really well. Michael Fulmer pitched this morning, and he looked really solid. He lost a lot of weight. He looked really good. Cameron Maben's got some pop still in his bat, and this is his third go around with the Tigers. Man, he's been playing for a really long time, Cameron
Yeah.
Maben. Like probably like what 4 or 5 teams in the last like 4 or 5 seasons. He kind of jumps all over the place, but he's a great
That's
player in
why, I
general.
mean, I'm surprised that he's still in Detroit. I mean, if there's one place you don't want to stick around, at least right
It's
now, it's probably the Tigers.
he started his career in Detroit, and
Yeah.
then I want to say he was with us in like 2015 or 2016 for 2 years. Then he played for the Yankees and a couple other teams since. But yeah, it is July 13th, and we are about 10 days from opening day now. So plenty of excitement, and there will be exhibition games. Like the Tigers, we open in Cincinnati, but we're going there early, and I think we have 2 exhibition games against them.
Hmm.
So that should be pretty interesting. I'm sure that will be televised. But Jason, for now, I think we're gonna go to our interview with Xavier Warren, the newest Milwaukee Brewer, and yeah, take a look. All right, everybody, welcome back to Bagels and Locks. We're here with our special guest, Xavier Warren, who was recently drafted. He is from Central Michigan University. You're listed as a shortstop and third base, which you played back at Central. But they announced you when you were drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers, third round, 92nd pick. You were announced as a catcher. So we saw this with Spencer Torkelson, who was the first pick, first round, went to the Tigers. He's a first baseman, but he was announced as a third baseman. So with you, I know you played catcher back in high school. So what's the story here as to why you were announced as a catcher?
For the most part, the Brewers they saw me catch. So I caught 4 games this year before the COVID happened and the season ended. So I caught 4 games, and I've had a little bit of catching experience in college. But the Brewers saw me catch, and they liked it. And then the scout told me they basically just wanted to try me out at catcher and just kind of see where I can go with it, because I'm pretty athletic, and a lot of catchers were infielders or converted from infield anyways. So we're just gonna try it out and see where it goes and go from there.
And when you were in high school, you were primarily a catcher, right? Like that was your everyday position?
I mean, so at Groves, which is my high school, I played short and I caught like a little bit, but I really did most of my catching in like travel, like summer ball.
Okay.
With my travel team, I was doing mostly catching in high school.
What travel team did you play for in the summer?
Oh,
Or
I
did it
played
like
for
change?
It was called Arsenal Baseball.
Okay. Where is that? I've never heard of them. I'm familiar with like a bunch of them, like the Bulls. Obviously, I'm sure you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, it's just like mainly out of like Detroit area, but we had a bunch of guys from kind of all over that ended up going on to play college ball. So yeah, it was we had some good teams.
How difficult was it to have your season cut short, and were you afraid that was going to hurt your draft potential at all?
It it was tough just because we won the MAC championship the year before, and like but definitely had a chance to do it again. So it sucked just because we didn't get to, and like we worked so hard like all the off season, and then we only got 17 games or whatever it was. So yeah, I mean it was tough, but I mean everybody in the country was in the same spot. So and as far as the draft went, I felt like because I played well in the Cape Cod League, I still was probably pretty good for the draft. And at that point, we also didn't know that it was going to be only 5 rounds. So I still felt really confident about the draft, even though the season got cut short.
what were some of your thoughts in the days that were leading up to the draft? And then how did you feel the day that you were drafted? What was going through your mind?
I mean, leading up to it, I was thinking like third, fourth round area. That was like for the most part what was hearing from all of the teams. And then when I got drafted, I mean, I'd say I was just really excited. A little surprised by the catching part, but still excited to do that. And then I had some family and friends over, just to watch it a little bit. So that was cool to have everyone there. But yeah, I mean, it was really just an exciting day. And at that time, it didn't really set in until, I don't know, probably a few days after at least, to realize like, oh, I actually, accomplished one of my childhood goals or dreams.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you were surprised when you were announced as catcher. Did you not know that going into like right before they announced your name?
Yeah, so right before, all I knew was that I was about to get picked, but I didn't know what it was going to say or anything, um, or position. I knew it was the Brewers, but it happened. It happened really fast. Like it happened like right before the pick was in on the TV. So the first time I saw it was just when it was up on the TV, just like everyone else.
You were kind of talking about when you were playing before the season got cut and before you found out that the draft was only going to be 5 rounds. So what is it like to be drafted in a year where the majority of the rounds are cut out And when you found out that there were only going to be 5 rounds, did this make you any more nervous than previously anticipated? And do you have any friends you feel like probably would have been drafted or would have made it and unfortunately didn't get that chance because of the shortened draft?
Yeah, I mean, the shortened drafts hurt like a lot of people, like a lot of good players out there didn't get picked this year. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the shortened draft, like it sucked, but at the same time, like I mean, I'm really happy and grateful like that I got picked, obviously still. But yeah, I definitely did feel, bad for some of my teammates or some of the guys I played with um in like the Cape Cod League or in like growing up, just people that I knew that, if it was the regular 40-round draft, like they definitely would have got picked. So yeah, I mean a lot of people got are gonna have to go back to school or figure something else out because 5 rounds is pretty exclusive and a lot less players than usual. So definitely tough.
To your knowledge, if you know, at what point during your college career, one, was there like major league scouts in attendance? And if you knew that they were in attendance, what was your mindset? Like, how did you approach your game differently when you knew that you had all eyes on you at one point versus it was just another day, a normal day out in the field?
Yeah, I mean, really, I didn't. I mean, there was some scouts there my sophomore year, but in the conference, like we had some other draft prospect guys, so they were actually probably there to see them. I didn't like play in front of a lot of MLB scouts until I got to the Cape Cod League probably last summer after my sophomore year. There was a ton of scouts at every game, and then as far as approaching that, I mean, nothing really changes. It's kind of one of the things our coaching staff at CMU preached was treat every game the same. No matter the opponent, whether who's watching or whatever. So I just really tried to take that, and even though obviously the scouts are there watching me and other guys too, but you just can't. It's something like you can't really like think about really. You just have to play.
Yeah, it's funny because so I played baseball in high school. I played pretty much all my life, and I was never good enough to play in college. But I always thought if that was the case, like at what point, like if I knew there were scouts in attendance, like how would
Mm,
that impact my game specifically? Like would I just, because I was a pitcher, so like would I just throw like be super wild and throwing all over the place? I always
right.
just wondered what was going through the minds of players like someone like you when you know that there's scouts in attendance and you put your whole everything you've ever learned, your skill set on the line.
Hmm.
I wondered how much pressure you have on you when you're out in the field or up at the plate.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's like one of those things like they're there, but like you just can't like fixate on it because then it will just kind of eat you up inside. And it's also another thing. You just kind of get more used to it as like you play in front of them more. You just know, and then it's just like a normal thing. So something
Yeah.
you kind of get used to over time.
Sort of sticking on the topic of scouts, but now talking about college scouts. At what point in high school were you talking to different college scouts, and what went into your decision to end up playing at Central?
I basically I got recruited in my sophomore year of high school. I committed to CMU junior summer of high school, and then I wanted to go to CMU because I thought it was the right fit for me, like academically, and I liked all the coaches there at the time, and I thought that I could go there and play like pretty early, like as a freshman. I thought I had a good chance to play right away there, so that was kind of one of my goals. And yeah, so ultimately it worked out great, and I met a lot of great people and coaches and staff from CMU, so it was a great decision.
So I want to say this was within the last 2 weeks, but the minor league season was canceled, which is affecting thousands of players across the country. So, what have your conversations been like with either your, former teammates, current teammates that you'll be playing with in the Brewers organization, any of your coaches? What have your conversations been like? What are you guys talking about? And thoughts for preparing to play again, come in the spring?
Yeah, so the Brewers have done a good job of kind of reaching out to me and the other draft picks that they had, and just keeping in touch and kind of just checking in on us. And as they get more information, they'll just let us know. Then I actually just got added to like this team group chat thing today, just to keeping the communication lines open. Obviously, we can reach out to any of those guys if we need anything or need help with anything, and then they will also just keep us updated on what's going to happen. So, and it's also like an introduction process as well, obviously, because we're not meeting in person, but still getting familiar with the people that we're eventually going to be working with.
So I was actually going to ask you this a little bit further down the line,
Mhm.
but so you're talking about like this player group. I actually know David Vinsky. Him and
Yeah.
I grew up together. We're like childhood best friends, and I saw that like last week he got all the guys, all the pro ball players pretty much in the area to play like scrimmage game. So what in terms of something like that, have you been involved? Like, are you
Mhm.
playing with those guys? Like, what are some of your reps and things like that look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now I've been hitting with David Vinsky a lot. Obviously he's got the bullpen connection. And for the people that don't know, it's just like batting cages and stuff like that. So yeah, we're pretty lucky in Michigan because there's a lot of professional baseball players kind of around this Metro Detroit area. So it's easy for us to reach out to each other and then meet up at a field or meet up at a place to hit or throw or whatever the case may be. But yeah, guys like David Vinsky and a bunch of others have been, kind of taking the lead role in that and getting people together for like the scrimmage you talked about and other like live sessions to hit and do pitching. So definitely helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm sure like having the bullpen is a great way to keep your game updated, whether you're facing live pitching or just getting your reps and off the tee.
Mhm.
It's great that you have access to that.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a big resource.
So sort of on a similar note, you're just talking about live pitching. So, how have you been handling that? Because, you're both behind the plate as a catcher sometimes and then as a hitter other times. So how's that experience been going thus far?
It's pretty good. I mean, usually you just try to get like a couple catchers so you guys can switch off and take turns like getting at bats in. So that hasn't really been a problem, but yeah, it's also nice to just like with this downtime kind of just catch those live bullpens and live hitting sessions because I mean it's about as close as to a game as you can get right now. So taking advantage of those opportunities has been really big just for as far as catching goes alone.
Do you have a mentor, like a coach, like your coach at Central, or any of your teammates that you've been really in contact with during this time? Like anybody who's really looking out for you, um, or just like who was your mentor growing up too? Like when you were learning how to play the game, um,
Mhm.
and things like that. Who did you really look up to?
I'd say me and my dad kind of bonded over baseball. He obviously was like my coach and like the classic like little league stuff, and then kind of helped me like set goals and stuff all the way up. And we would always just go to the field, hit, throw, do all that type of stuff. So I guess he could be a good example. And then as far as when I got to college, I would say Coach Bishel, the head coach at CMU now, is helped me a lot with my development, and he helped me become a better teammate and player, along with a lot of my other teammates too. Like, we all really benefited from him and his coaching staff and the stuff they had to offer. So I give a lot of credit to him for my college success and everything up to this point.
Nice. Um, I'm sure you've heard that there's all these new crazy rules that are in place for Major League Baseball right now. Some of the things include no sunflower seeds. You can't, as a pitcher, you can't lick your fingers, then go ahead and touch the ball. I also understand that you can't throw the ball around the horn anymore. And you can't, like as an
Wow.
infielder during warmups, like you can't do warm-ups with your infield, throwing the ball from
Hmm.
first base. So I'm just curious to think, to gauge some of your thoughts. And for players that have to make these adjustments, these new rules, who knows how long this is going to be the case. I just want to know what you think.
I don't want to say it's like overkill, but I mean, if they think those are the right steps to being able to actually play the whole MLB season, then I mean I'd say I'd be on board with it just because you'd rather finish the season and be overly safe than get halfway through and then you have a bunch of COVID among players and managers and coaches and stuff, and then you don't even finish the season. So I mean, it's definitely going to be weird to watch and weird to see how the players kind of adjust to that. But I'd say if that's what they need to do to get it done, then I'd say by all means they should take all those precautions.
Yeah, I just can't believe like no sunflower seeds. I
Yeah,
find that
yeah.
so that's a little over the top.
I don't know if that one's gonna. I feel like that one won't last that long.
Right. It's an addiction like amongst players. I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
outfielders, they like how can you not? And it's
Yeah.
just I don't know how long, like you said, I don't know how long that one's gonna last.
Moving on, I know it's pretty far in the future and kind of hard to think about a little bit.
Mhm.
But what's one thing you're really looking forward to when you report to spring training all the way in February?
Yeah. I'd say just meeting a lot of the guys that I haven't had the chance to meet yet. And like in a
Mhm.
regular season that I probably already would have, met. And then I'd say at that point, I mean, I'm just gonna be really excited to just play and be in warm weather in February and
Yeah.
just be around the game and just start working my way up in the organization. Um, I'd say I'm looking forward to all of those things as far as spring training.
All right. And then one last question before we get into our next little segment with you.
Mhm.
You just talked about moving up in the organization. As we just saw, Yelich just signed a 10-year extension with the team. You got any thoughts of playing with him further down the road and what that could be
Yeah,
like?
yeah. Someone asked me that too. Yeah. I mean, meeting him and like the thought of possibly being teammates with him and like a lot of the other guys too. I mean, he just won the MVP, so it would be
Yeah.
it'd be one of those things that's kind of surreal at first, and then I'm sure after 162 games, you get pretty close with people and get used to it. But yeah, to definitely think about that, the possibility of that happening, is really cool, and it's pretty motivating too, actually. So
Yeah, bro. I mean, Yelich quietly has become literally one of the best players in all of baseball. It's crazy
yeah,
to see too that old school Miami Marlins team, how they couldn't come together with the players that they had. They had Real Muto, Stanton, D. Gordon, Marcelo Zuna, and all those guys, went their
yeah,
separate ways. But yeah, hopefully, man, one day. I mean, 10 years
yeah. He's
for
gonna be
him,
there
and
for a while, so
yeah. So for you, it seems rather likely. Um,
yeah.
but we are going to play a little game here with you, Xavier. It's called Hitting for the Cycle. So we're going to
Okay.
see if you can hit for the cycle. We're going to ask you a series of trivia questions, if you will. Hopefully, we don't embarrass you uh, or humiliate you in any way, but it's all for fun. I'll start. I'll ask you a question, and Jason and we can go back and forth, and we'll see how far you can get. So, if this was hitting for the cycle, getting a single is the easiest of the four hits. So, our
Mhm.
first question for you, Xavier, within 10 points or so, what was your batting average back in 2019 when you played for Central?
Um, I think it should be like 369.
Yep,
Is
correct.
that Yeah, all right. I thought that's
Yeah,
what it
well,
was.
Jason found 369 on, was it
It was
Baseball
baseball
America?
reference.
Baseball Reference. And
Yeah.
then they have you listed on Central's website at 363. So
Yeah.
you're
So
you're within 10.
the 363 one is before the regional game. So it went or the regional
Ah.
games. So the 369 is after. So it went up a little bit after the Mississippi State regional.
So you're saying you bat better when it counts is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much
exactly.
awesome.
Exactly.
All
All
right.
right. Well, lucky you. You're 1 for 1 with a single here. So
All
let's
right.
see. Can you get a double? Jason, go ahead.
All right. So for the double, what is the name of the Brewers mascot and what
Oh.
happens when a player hits a home run on the Brewers?
All right, I know he goes down the slide in like center field, I think, or like left center
Yep.
or
Yep,
right center.
yep.
One of them.
Left. Left.
Okay, left. Yeah. I don't. Let me think for a sec. But yeah, there's no way. I don't. I feel like when one of you say it, I'm gonna like remember that I've seen it, but I can't remember it right now.
All right. His name is Bernie Brewer, but you did know that he slides down the slide in the outfield, so I think
Yeah.
we'll give you that.
Yeah.
That was
All right,
We'll let
maybe
it slide.
an error
We'll let
in
it
the
slide.
outfield or the infield.
Yeah.
You made it to
Single
second.
and an error.
Yep. So, Brandon, you got the triple.
All right. So in my opinion, and in most players and everyone's opinion, the triple is the hardest part of achieving the cycle. So this question is going to be a little bit more difficult. But this question is multiple choice. So you got some options here. So here we go. How much cheese does Wisconsin produce every year? Is it 50 million pounds of cheese, 100 million pounds of cheese, or 2 billion pounds of cheese?
I'm gonna go 100 million.
Is that your final answer?
Is that the 2 billion? That's too much. But yeah, that's my final answer. What is it? B 100 million.
It's 2 billion. 2 billion pounds of cheese.
That's ridiculous.
See, look, our reaction was the same thing. I Google searched. I was like, how many pounds of cheese does Wisconsin produce every year? It said 2 billion, and I didn't believe it. But I mean, they're like, what, the cheese capital of the U.S.?
Yeah. Damn, that 2 billion pounds though. That's
a lot.
That seems like. But I guess they probably do.
Yeah. Well, you're soon to find out. Hopefully, by the time you get to the Brewers, you will know that yes, it really is that much
cheese with every meal.
Sure.
Last question here for the home run. Who was the last Brewer to hit for the cycle?
Christian Yelich.
Yep.
Was he did it twice.
Did he really? I did not know.
He did it twice in one season.
Wow.
What? Really? I knew he did it last year. I think
he did it at Cincinnati.
Was it one at home?
He did it.
Right? One
and then he did the other one at home.
Yep. I didn't realize they were both in the same year. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So you went 3 for 4. We do have an honorable question where if you can get this one right, I guess we'll count it. Say you got the triple and that you hit for the cycle. Right. But this may
be the hardest
difficult.
question yet. That's the only thing.
Well,
yes.
We'll see.
It is baseball related though, and not cheese related. So you may have a better chance.
Your odds are highly increased. So, what was the original name of the Milwaukee Brewers for one season back in 1969?
Neither of us knew this till today. So
yeah,
to be fair.
So I'm feeling that's gonna be me too.
Yeah, I don't blame you. They were the Seattle Pilots.
Oh yeah, I was not even on the right track at all.
No, I know Jason asked me earlier, and I had zero clue. So that's all right. You finished 3 for 4, triple shy of the cycle, which happens often.
Yeah.
But yeah, Xavier, this was a blast. Thanks for joining in. Taking some time away to talk to us and hang out.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck. Keep grinding, keep practicing. Everyone's in the same boat as you, and it's really a time to make the most useful time that you have. And I think before you know it, baseball will return, and you definitely got a bright future ahead of you. So there's a lot to be excited about.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
One more thing before you go real quick. If you want to shout out your Instagram or any social media, people can follow you along your journey. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but we always give our guests the opportunity.
It's Instagram and Twitter is just at Xavier Warren with a Z. Just my name, one word.
Easy enough.
You make it easy for us.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Xavier. We appreciate it. Welcome back to Bagels and Locks. So, Jason, I honestly loved getting to talk to Xavier. A really cool guy, down to earth. Crazy time to be drafted. I mean, like he said, it was his childhood dream, and he was so glad that he could obviously accomplish that. But who would have thought at this point in time, with everything that's going on, that this would be the case? But it's great that he's still getting in the work, getting in the reps with some of the local guys that have been drafted or currently were drafted this past season. Like I said, David Vinsky, I know he's been working with out at the bullpen. So we wish Xavier the best of luck, and I'm sure he's got a bright future ahead of him. And we can't wait to see the things that he's capable of doing here. And we wish him the best of luck. So we're going to move on now, talk a little bit about this interesting Woj bomb of sorts, Jason. I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure most of you guys understand a Woj bomb, but this was a Woj F bomb. So, Jay, what's going on here?
You spend all night coming up with that one? That was pretty slick. That was a good one.
You know what? Right on the spot. Right on the spot.
This guy is quick on his feet. Anyways, Free Woj has been trending on Twitter past 48 hours or so. For those who do not know, there was a senator that emailed Woj asking him what the NBA and NBA people were doing about the situation in Hong Kong right now. Not to get too political, but they have a lot of fans in China and a lot of support from Hong Kong. Usually, NBA hasn't really spoke up on what's going on over there, and so this senator was poking at Woj, asking him about it because Woj is the NBA insider. He knows everything there is to know before anyone else knows it. And Woj responded to this guy by saying "fuck you," and later on, that's it. That was literally the whole response to the email. It's just 2 words. And the next day, ESPN suspended Woj. I don't know for how long. I think it's just like a couple weeks or something. Especially with basketball starting back up, I'm sure they want him. But anyways, everyone on NBA Twitter and just in general, it's an NBA fan. Even if you're not on Twitter, you know who Woj is. And he worked for Yahoo Sports forever. Eventually got hired by ESPN. He always breaks the free agent signings, the trade deadlines, any suspensions, anything like that. So Twitter has absolutely been having their field day with this one. There's been a ton of memes. They've been really funny. Just search up hashtag free Woj if you want to take a look at those. I know LeBron even tweeted hashtag free Woj. And the play, I think there's a change.org petition that's like going around to like have him be unsuspended. I know one person asked me, like, do you think he's going to be fired? And I said, well, wouldn't really make sense for them to suspend him and then fire him. They would have fired him already. And honestly, Woj, like, the ESPN needs Woj more than Woj needs them, because Woj could get a job anywhere else. Like, as we've stated, he is the guy for basketball news. So it's unfortunate for Woj and pretty funny, but I know you were talking about this earlier, Brandon, before the show. You brought up a pretty good point. He seems like the least likely guy to respond in this way and to get in trouble.
Yes. Well, especially when you are who you are, right? Oftentimes, I mean, we see this all the time with like celebrities and whatnot, whether it's like getting a DUI or making a bad name for yourself. But when you're a sports figure, who's not an athlete, and you're on TV all the time, and you're well known, and you're successful, and you're great at what you do, and you drop Woj bombs, who would have thought that this would happen? I mean, it's just another story to add to 2020. You got Woj being suspended because of an email. So we don't know how long the suspension will last. He's suspended without pay. And like you said, man, the NBA is backing him up. If LeBron tweets it, that's how you know. Like, you know that something is up. Like, LeBron's got your back. First off, LeBron's got your back. Woj is going to be fine. There's no way he gets fired. And I'll be shocked. But there's just no sense in why that happened. I guess, Woj just, he was like, screw it. I'm sure he had a sense of like, well, this could get out. He had to have known that it was a little suspicious in terms of sending that. I'm sure he was a little bit paranoid maybe right after he'd send like, maybe I should go back and delete that email, but it is what it is. And it's a Woj bomb unlike any other, let's just say.
Yeah, most definitely. And the unfortunate thing is there's been 2 potential Woj bombs within the past 24 hours of news
Yeah.
that he could have broken. The first being Russell Westbrook this morning. It's Monday, July 13th, tested positive for coronavirus. And people, I guess he didn't travel with the team. So people were kind of speculating why that was or whatever. I guess he was waiting back for the results of this test, or he already knew and just hadn't made it public yet. But it turns out he did test positive. Personally, for me, I don't find this very surprising. I believe, I'm not for certain, but I'm almost certain that I saw him participating in Black Lives Matters protests and out in the
Okay.
streets with plenty of people. So
Yeah.
kind of makes sense that when you expose yourself to that many people, that there's a chance you might get it. But this is sort of tough because if he doesn't kick this soon, this isn't really good for the Rockets in terms of those first 8 qualifying games.
Yeah, and not only that, but he's not even with the team. He's not practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we don't know the severity of it because I know a lot of guys are testing positive. There's some of those guys that are testing positive have said, look, I feel fine, or they're asymptomatic. We saw Donovan Mitchell when he tested positive back in, what was that, 3 years ago, it feels like, back in March. He was asymptomatic. So, we don't know if Russ has been having a hard time breathing or anything, any sort of respiratory issues. But you would think that even, missing practicing with your team, getting back in that rhythm, that groove, that chemistry, because Russ is, the key to that team essentially. And it's not like they're nothing without him, but in this crunch time of a season, he needs to be there and getting back into the groove of things. Otherwise, it could be, really drastic for the Rockets.
Most definitely. And the other big Woj bomb that would have happened is that Kings player Rashawn Holmes tweeted out that after his initial quarantine period, he briefly and accidentally crossed the NBA campus line to pick up a food delivery. So he currently has to quarantine for 10 days. He has 8 days left. Most players, when they get there, they only had 48 hours in which they initially had to quarantine. But because he crossed this line to grab the food, he has an additional 8 days. And the Kings are going to be without him. And that's, first of all, it's just so funny because all we've been hearing about is how awful the food is that that he Postmates or Grubhub or Uber Eats, whatever method of food delivery service he went through, that he crossed the line to do this. So these have been 2 pretty big stories that Woj has missed out on.
Did you see what Kelly Oubre tweeted about it?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you see like the last thing he said? It kind of bugs me because there's a lot of, we're seeing all these pictures of the food, right? And some of it does look on the gross end.
Yeah.
And these guys, these athletes can't just eat like a sandwich and a bag of chips. Like they need meals. And Ja Morant came out and basically said he didn't need, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he basically was like, I'm fine with whatever's going on. I don't need to eat like a king, right? But Kelly Oubre tweeted basically, like you should order Postmates, yada, yada. And then he was like, the food may be trash, but like better than nothing or something. The food may be trash. Like any restaurant that's in the area that is on Postmates that you can order. So any restaurant basically out there like is crap. It just kind of annoys me because we're kind of seeing like a different side of these guys and like a side of like cockiness, if you will. And granted, some of the food has like not great that they're getting, but I don't know. It kind of that strikes me to be a little bit annoying and
I
arrogant.
mean, I also think it's sort of I mean, you know the way social media works and all that stuff, you know, when it's sort of a trend, right? So a lot of the initial players got there and the food was pretty gross and they were tweeting about it, but they weren't making a super big deal out of it. And then more and more players come and they saw how much clout or retweets or views, whatever they got on their social media, and they want to, you know, be part of it too, be part of the culture, be, you know, be one of the guys, be funny about it. And that's, I feel like that's why all these guys have been continually joking about it and going on and on about it, and kind of how it's grown into this larger than life thing, if you will.
Yeah, right. I mean, you talk about, guys joking around and whatnot, and how it's being blown up into proportion on social media. I was really entertained by J.R. Smith because he was going live on Instagram. So, like you had said earlier, any player, all the teams, when they first reported to the hotel, each player had to individually quarantine for 48 hours. So they couldn't even leave their room. You couldn't
Mm-hmm.
go, I'm JR, right? I can't go to LeBron's room to play duos Fortnite with him. Like, there's none of that. You have to be in your room. So JR obviously was a little ticked by this and was bored, which I don't blame him. So he was on Instagram Live, and it was great. I loved it because he brought in DeMar DeRozan, and they basically talked about like what they had been doing. It seemed like DeMar, they were on their second day. So they were on their second 48 hours, and then JR and the Lakers, they had just gotten there. So DeMar basically had said that all he does is would stay up late at night playing video games, and we've seen a lot of guys are bringing like their PC monitors and their Xbox, PlayStation, whatever, to play video games. He said that he stays up late, all he does is play games, and then he sleeps the day away. Which now this has changed because they are back to practicing and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, these, they're on a tight leash, and there's only so much they can do. So I know. I can't think of someone. Someone commented too on the Instagram Live. A current
Another
player.
player.
Yeah, and they basically said like it's back to like the old AAU days or something.
I
And it
think it
is. It's
was
like
Donovan Mitchell, maybe.
uh, I don't know, because there was two separate times he went live, and he
Okay.
actually got in trouble, J.R. Smith,
Yeah,
because
they told him to stop.
they told him to stop. Who was
Like, get
they?
off
I
live.
wonder.
I don't know.
Like the NBA, like who said? Right, because he wasn't bad mouthing them, but he was just like, we're eating this, and this is my hotel room, and it sucks, and like yada yada yada. And
You see
Rondo
him with
too.
the Velveeta mac and cheese. You see that one? That was
Who, Jr.
yeah. He was
No,
like
what do you
pulling
do?
out, like, it was like a bag of all the food they were like got for lunch or something, and he pulled out like the microwavable Velveeta mac and cheese. And he was
Velveeta.
just like, bruh. Like he was just like he like this was just really funny. I don't know.
Wow.
He's been hilarious.
He's been great, man. He's been awesome. Talk about a comeback story too. We saw Jamal Crawford is returning. He's going to play with the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're a bit of a mess right now with all their injuries and players opting out and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the span of 8 games. But something else that we should mention too is that so players were given the option to put a social justice message on their jerseys in place of their last name.
Mm-hmm.
And it was announced that LeBron and Anthony Davis decided not to participate. Basically, LeBron had said he didn't go with the name on the back of his jersey. It was no disrespect to the list that was handed out to all the players. I commend anyone that decides something on the back of our jersey, just something that didn't seriously resonate with my mission, with my goal. I would have loved to have a say so on what would have went on the back of the jersey, but I'm okay with that. I don't need to have something on the back of the jersey for people to understand my mission and what I'm about. So players were offered a list of different messages that they could put on their jersey instead of their last name. But we had talked about this on previous episodes, Jason. We were wondering who would decide to opt out of doing it. I figured it might have been an all in or nothing, considering this, the situation and how big of a movement it is. So it's interesting to see this, the biggest NBA star deciding not to do so. And obviously there's no bad blood there. It's not a bad reason by any means that he decided to go this. But we're seeing publicly announced that Anthony Davis and LeBron will have their names on the back of their jersey. So we came across an article that is talking about some of the players' thoughts on camp so far. We already talked
I
about
just
a little bit
wanted
about.
before we move on, I just wanted to kind of talk about that for a
Okay.
second. I think it's sort of interesting that because at first I don't know if you knew this, but I did not know that they were being given like a list of pre-chosen messages that they could choose from. I thought it was you could say whatever you want to say, and that's kind of why LeBron opted out, because he wanted to convey something else that the NBA would not allow. My thinking personally is that he probably wanted to have the last name of one of the victims of what's happened in our country, maybe Breonna Taylor or whoever it may be. But I found this, I'm pretty sure that was not one of the options the NBA gave their players, and I found this really interesting because I know in the WNBA that they are allowed to do that. Like I know that there's a couple WNBA players that are going to have Breonna Taylor's name on the back of their jersey. So it doesn't make sense since they're pretty much, I mean, they're not the exact same organization, but they're one and the same for the most part. So I was
Yeah.
very shocked that that wasn't the case. And a couple people have said like, wow, I can't believe LeBron isn't doing this. Like he's such a narcissist. He's so full of himself, whatever. And, those people can think what they may, but obviously LeBron has been an advocate for social justice and players being involved in more than just basketball for a very long time. And I think that he makes a good point by with just his regular name on the back of his jersey. A lot of people understand what he's about and his message.
Yeah, I didn't know that the WNBA was allowing their players to include the last names of those who, had had died. That I didn't know, but like you said, it's not necessarily like a bad thing that LeBron isn't going with it. There was another message that he wanted to put out there, and here we are insinuating that it was probably, having like George Floyd's name on the back of his jersey or Breonna Taylor, and the NBA is not letting them do that. So I guess we won't know. We don't know, and
We'll never know.
we'll probably never know. And we will. I mean, eventually we'll know other players that have opted out as well. Other players that have decided. It was 17 of them. I think.
Yeah.
17 of the players opted out and will have their regular jerseys have their name on the back of their jersey. So yes, we will probably soon hear those other players, and I'm sure that the reasonings are similar as to why they decided to opt out.
Sort of talking about the Lakers and whether they'll be there in October, some news recently came out of Rajon Rondo, and he fractured his thumb, and he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. So this is also coming after the news that Avery Bradley would not be traveling with the team. So all of a sudden, the Lakers really don't have that many guards, and they don't have that much depth, and that could be a problem, especially going late into the playoffs and all that. So, Brandon, what do you think this means for the Lakers' title chances?
Well, I mean, it doesn't play that big of an effect per se. And 6 to 8 weeks, it was a sprained.
It was a fractured
What
thumb.
did he do? A fractured thumb. Well, that definitely.
Kind of need it.
Yeah, you need that, and it does hurt. But I mean, that in terms of like a recovery, something to think about too is that we've maybe never considered. obviously in regular games you have trainers and medical staff on the sideline, but I wonder what that is like now, especially in the NBA, with handling injuries live in the moment. And for Rajon's case, rehab, the rehab process. What's that
Mhm.
like now in the world of COVID? Could it take that 6 to 8 week span? Could it be even longer because of the situation at hand and they're not at their usual facility and, yada, yada, yada. Could it be longer than usual? There's a chance for that. But in terms of actually affecting their chances, I think the Lakers will be just fine. Um, Rondo is getting up there in age. He's got the experience. They will,
What
what'll
have you
hurt them is
seen?
his I was gonna say his veteran presence and his experience in terms of playing in the playoffs, because they won't get him for they'll probably have him by what, 8 weeks from now. That's 2 months. I mean,
It's the end
I
of
don't know,
September, man. Like
end of September. So
right
it would
before.
probably be by the finals if they get him back in time.
Well,
What were
I
you
was
gonna say?
I was gonna ask if you've seen. You said he's getting old. I was gonna ask if you've seen pictures of him recently, because he has like been training with boxers, boxing training, and he's like in the best shape of his life. He looks phenomenal. And
Really?
yes, and also he is known as playoff Rondo around the NBA community. I mean, in the playoffs is when Rondo really shines. I think the last time he was in the playoffs, he nearly averaged a triple double, which he usually does like every time he's in the playoffs. And that's one of the reasons why LeBron wanted him so bad, because of the effort that he brings on both sides of the floor, not only during the regular season, but especially deep into the playoffs. And I know you're saying this might not affect them too much, but he is one of the best defensive guards that they have. The best one was probably Avery Bradley, who, as I said,
Mm,
won't be joining the team. So really, you're down to Danny Green and Alex Caruso. And you might be saying, well, it's not really that big of a deal. LeBron can guard all 5 positions. He can just guard whoever's bringing up the ball. But if you're playing a team like the Clippers that have both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you can't really have LeBron be on Patrick Beverly or be on Lou
right.
Williams or be on any of their guards that they have, because they're a very deep team as well, and they pose the biggest threat to this Lakers team. So I've actually been talking to a couple people, and they've been placing some bets on the Clippers to win it all now after hearing this Rondo
Really?
news that he is out. Yes. And I don't really blame them. I mean, it's actually I think it's a lot bigger blow than what people are making it out to be. And trust me,
Hmm.
I'm a huge LeBron fan. I would love for them to win, but sometimes you got to be honest with yourself and look at the situation.
Well,
And it's not like J.R. Smith has been in the league recently and that he
right.
has been an all class, all world defender even when he was playing. So I mean they're pretty weak defensively at the guard position.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Caruso is shining more so on the offensive side of the ball, with his dunking ability, and Danny Green is good from behind the arc. So, you know, I I don't know if going against the Lakers in terms of betting on the Clippers, to win the Western Conference is ideal. I don't think it's that. I really don't think it's that big of a blow, because at the end of the day, you still have AD and LeBron, and like to me, that duo, that combination can take down anybody else. So playoff Rondo, sure, and his defensive ability, sure, and does it really make that big of a difference? It might, but now we've got the new chemistry, the new old chemistry of JR and LeBron. So I wouldn't worry that much if I'm the Lakers, if I'm a Lakers fan. I mean, it is tough, and obviously there's a chance that you can get him back early, but the 6 to 8 week time span is a little long, considering that there's 8 games left, and then we have the playoffs. So who knows, Jason? We'll have to see.
Yeah, I
Hopefully,
guess
we
we'll
wish
have to wait
Rondo.
and see. We're on different sides of this one.
Yes, It's funny too. We say that often here on Bagels and Locks. We'll have to wait and see, solely because we spent all this time. This is like our 8th episode, 2 months basically into this, and we haven't even had any games.
Not one
So
second of a game. Yeah.
not a second of a game, other than soccer and the occasional
KBO.
UFC match and the KBO. But I'm going to be honest with you. I've been a little bit of a sleeper when it comes to the KBO. I have not woken up at 5 a.m. to watch the games on ESPN.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But you're still placing your bets on your boys, aren't you? The Dinos.
For the past week or so, I've kind of stopped. It's been a little weird. The Dinos have slowed down. The Bears have, like, all the teams that started out really hot have sort of slowed down. Like, I think the Dinos tonight are like plus like 110 or something. It's like they're not they're still the best team in the league, but that's just because the huge start they built, which kind of goes back to the baseball discussion we've had 1,000 times. Like, let's say the Dinos only played 60 games. They're like, I think they're almost 60 games in their season right now, because I update my Twitter every day with the Dinos record. I think they're almost around 60 games. But let's say a team starts hot and then they just, they don't have it anymore. We could very well see this in the MLB, which is one thing we did talk about. But you did mention UFC, so I think that will move us into Fight Island, which took place this past weekend. So, Brandon, I believe you're going to give us some fun facts about Fight Island, and then I'm going to break down the fights a little bit. We'll talk about Washington's football team, some news going on there, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah. So Fight Island, something that I don't want to partake in, Jason. I'm sure you wouldn't necessarily want to show up and partake in as well. So this was on an island in Abu Dhabi called Yas Island. So everything was built from the ground up the past few months. It was like the first big event that was held at this facility. So it was kind of a big deal. There was a lot of excitement behind it. There's another event there later this week, but it's not as big. And this, it's not like this is the one time that this Yas Island is going to have any sort of, event take place. So at some point in the future, it's going to be used again. This was the second most sold UFC event ever, with 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, which is insane. It was the most ever was Conor versus Khabib, which had 2.4 million. Also, I'm sure you saw Khabib's dad died of the coronavirus. When was it? Last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It was crazy. But this did not include illegal streams in terms of that 2.4 million pay-per-view buys. So the event was headlined by 3 title fights. It was Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, the bantamweight title bout, Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight title bout, and Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman, the welterweight title bout. So, Jason, I know that you had some thoughts, and this for you is your cup of tea. So go ahead and let us know what went down.
Yeah. So, for those who watched, it was a great event. Probably one of the best UFC events we've had in months. Especially with like no fans and stuff. It's been pretty awkward, but for those who know, Fight Island's been hyped up for a long time now. And originally we didn't know it was going to be in Abu Dhabi. Some people thought it was just going to be some island that they bought in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and the octagon was just going to be on the beach, and it was going to be, pretty crazy. But it was actually in a really cool state-of-the-art facility. Everyone was tested. Everyone had these cool hotels, all this stuff. There's a whole behind-the-scenes thing you can look up. But anyways, there was actually, I believe, 13 or maybe 16 fights that took place on Saturday. Started at 6 p.m. Eastern time, went until about 2 in the morning Eastern time,
Crazy.
All the way through. The main card was from 10 p.m. and after. But I'm not going to waste your guys' time. I'll just go over the last 3 fights of the evening, all the fights for the belts. So the first fight was Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo. If you watch this, your stomach was churning, because the ref definitely should have stopped this one, like probably a minute and a half to 2 minutes before he actually did. And I think personally, this is the type of thing that will turn people away from the UFC. I believe this could have been the fight of the night before what happened. I mean, it was an incredible fight. Both guys were looking really good, really strong. They had to make a lot of adjustments on the fly, change their game plan. For those who probably don't even follow UFC, you know the name Jose Aldo, just because I think he's been in 14 title fights in his career. He's just torn up uh, many of the divisions, and he's recently moved down a weight class. Um, to the bantamweight, dropped 10 pounds. He has like a new dietitian, new trainer, and he's never been able to make this weight before. But now that he can, like, he looks totally refreshed, totally new. And he was throwing those leg kicks that he was so famous for, causing Jan to switch his stance to southpaw very often because his legs were just so beat up. And I mean, it was so even until the fifth and final round, and eventually Jan caught Aldo, took him to the floor, and he was just beating him senselessly over the head, just pounding shots on his head one after another. And literally, I mean, I was screaming at my TV, like, end it, end this fight, like, please end this fight. Like, I do not want to watch this anymore. This is horrible. And usually what happens is they'll call it a technical knockout when the person isn't, they say he isn't making an effort to defend himself anymore. So it's just like they're covering up, they're not trying to move, they're not trying to get out of a hold, they're just getting mauled. And this was happening for, as I said, a minute and a half to 2 minutes straight. It was just awful. I watched Joe Rogan's commentary on it because he actually wasn't at Fight Island. For those who know, he's one of the commentators for the UFC, but he streamed it with, like, you couldn't see the fight, but like he was commentating it as it was going on. And I didn't watch that because it wasn't synced up perfectly. So I went back and watched it after, just particularly for that fight, because I want to know if he was thinking the same thing I was, and we were totally on the same page. I mean, it was just a brutal beating, and even afterwards, Dana White said that they need to look into their officiating and go over some rules again with these guys, because it should have never happened. And those who know, Jose Aldo, as I've said, is one of the biggest names in the sport, and he's one of the most beloved guys. And you hate to see that happen to anyone, but especially him. So Petr Yan ended up walking away with the belt, and I had him winning by knockout at like plus 120 or something like that. So that was a good bet for me. But unfortunately, I didn't want to win it like that. You know what I mean? I wanted them to end it probably a minute before it actually ended. Yeah. Next fight of the night was Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski. This is for the featherweight title. For those who don't know, this is a rematch. So Max used to be the champ. They had a match back in December. Volkanovski, they fought, went 5 rounds, went the whole distance. The judges decided Volkanovski won. There's a lot of controversy behind that because a lot of people thought Max won that fight. Max wasn't happy. He thought he won that fight. And Volkanovski said, all right, dude, like, I don't care. We'll have a rematch. That's fine. Their rematch was this past weekend. They fought again. It went all 5 rounds again, and Volkanovski won by decision again. The thing is, it was another very controversial decision, so much so that on Twitter, Holloway 3-2 was trending like the whole night on Twitter, because that everyone thought that he had won that fight for a second time, and he'd lost his fight 2 times in a row. The first 2 rounds, Holloway easily won. The last 2 rounds, Volkanovski won. The third round was the one that people were unsure about. Statistically, if you looked at the strikes thrown and all that stuff, Holloway won. And I think personally by the eyeball test, Holloway won. But it ended up being Volkanovski. And in the press conference after the event, Dana was asked that, he was being asked about it, and he said that we've got some really bad judging, obviously. And then he asked all the reporters, is there anyone here who thinks that Volkanovski won the fight? And the room was dead silent. No one said anything. Everyone thought that Max had won that fight. So typically in the UFC, if you have a fight for a belt, one guy wins, there's a rematch, he beats the contender again, that's it. There's the guy usually doesn't get another shot, at least for a long time. But they're saying there might be a Volkanovski Holloway 3, which would be the third edition of the fight, because this was just such a controversial ending 2 times in a row. So I think the media, the fans, and even the UFC feels that Holloway probably should be the champion, but the judge's decision has kind of fucked that up 2 times in a row. Then last, but definitely not least, or maybe least, depending on how you viewed these fights, was George Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. This one was for the welterweight title, and a lot of people were really, really excited for this fight. One of the main reasons why this event sold almost as much as Conor versus Khabib. Masvidal has beat his he's beat his last 3 opponents by knockout or TKO, and there's a lot of hype behind him. He had this last fight, he had a flying knee that ended the fight in 2 seconds against Ben Askren. So he's had a lot of hype behind him, and he has a lot of power. The thing about him is he's been in the UFC for actually 17 years, as long as LeBron has been in the NBA. But he doesn't have he didn't really start winning and becoming a superstar until this past year. He's had a really good past year and a half. So this fight was actually supposed to be Gilbert Burns versus Kamaru Usman, but Burns, I think, tested positive maybe, or the fight fell through. So for some reason, so they called up Masvidal, and they're like, "You're on, kid." He said, "All right." So within 6 days, he flew out to Abu Dhabi, cut 20 pounds of weight, and then went in to fight Usman. And I think this fight pretty much went the way most serious fans thought it would go. His main opportunity was early on Masvidal's main opportunity was early on by knockout. Didn't happen, and Usman pretty much had him in the clinch and wrestled him for the majority, like literally the rest of the whole match. And I was pretty surprised with Masvidal's takedown defense. I knew statistically he'd never really been taken down before, but the difference is that Usman he's a world-class wrestler. He's a national wrestling champion from college. So I thought that'd play out a little differently, but they were in the clinch a lot against the fence, and a lot of people on Twitter weren't afraid to voice their opinions about how bored they were and how much it sucked, and all he's doing is stomping his feet. Why does he keep stomping his feet? Why doesn't he do anything else? And what you guys got to understand is, like, he's a champion, and if he stands there and strikes with Masvidal, Usman will probably lose. He wants to retain his title bad. He doesn't really care about, being flashy or putting on that type of show. He went there as a champ. He wants to leave as a champ. And it's really hard to throw punches when your foot's all swollen up and busted up, because you can't get any power behind your punch or your kicks or have as good a takedown defense. So stopping on their feet is actually it's actually a huge tactic in the UFC and super helpful. But anyways, by the public eye, strikers are always going to be a lot more beloved than wrestlers and grapplers. That's why, even the most buys ever was that Conor Khabib fight, and a lot of people weren't happy with that one either, because it was mostly on the ground and wasn't very exciting. But either way, Usman won via decision, retaining his title. It was a great event overall, I thought. Super exciting, and I stayed up till 2 a.m. watching it. I thought it was worth it, even though a lot of other people didn't. And that's my UFC spiel, and I am exhausted.
You know what I think, Jason?
Huh?
I think that the NBA bubble in Orlando, in Yas Island, Fight Island, needs a flip-flop. I think the NBA bubble
Should go to Abu Dhabi.
Should go to Abu Dhabi, okay, and play there, because it looks awesome. It literally looks like Disney World on islands in the middle of the ocean. And Fight Island just could have been Fight Wide World of Sports Complex at Disney World.
Yeah.
I think it'd be awesome. It literally, based on these pictures, it looks sweet. It's kind of somewhat hard. There's this big Ferrari like thing. You know what I'm talking about? The big.
I don't know. I just know that all these oil princes and stuff over there just do everything to the max, and like it's super sick. I think there's like a golf course like right outside
Dude, I mean,
the
based on what
arena. The
I'm
hotels are
looking
state of
at,
the art. I mean, this stuff was literally built like a couple months ago. Like this whole thing. Like this was
wow,
just very recently constructed. I
that's
mean, everyone
crazy.
there, all the athletes, all the fighters, all the commentators, everyone said like this is like the coolest place. Like this is state of the art. The only thing they complain about is that it's summer there right now, so it's like it's like disgustingly hot, and
Oof.
that it would be great to come back during the winter. But other than that, they said it's like the most state of the art, awesome facility. And even Dana White said because he just built a UFC facility in Vegas called the Apex. He said, "So I just built a facility that cost me $120 million, and it doesn't even hold a candle to this place." He's like, "I love that
Wow.
place. I spent so much time putting that place together, but this place is the shit."
Well, I'm looking at a map with the legend right now. So some of the things that stand out. So there's the Yaz Links Golf Course. There's Waterworld, which is basically a massive water
Water
park, and
park, yeah.
it's nothing small. It's state of the art, like massive. Let's see, Ferrari World, Abu Dhabi. I don't really know what that entails. My guess is you could test drive Ferraris and stuff. I don't know. I mean, it looks insane. There's a kart zone, a drag racing academy. Let's see. There's this is awesome. There's an IKEA. Like
I
what?
did not know there was an IKEA.
It literally says IKEA. It says Ace too. I'm guessing it's not like Ace Hardware. That I don't know what they mean by Ace.
If so,
There's
Ace
like
Hardware is making a killing in Abu Dhabi right now. They just built a whole island.
there's a mall. There's 7 hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Bus stops with buses that I'm sure take you around the entire shuttle connecting to all mega attractions. Is the virus just not a thing there?
No, they
I
have
mean,
everyone there has been tested like 3 times. Like you can't go on the island without like passing like your test like 3 times, and then
wow.
they have like extra tests there, and they like test every like I think that island has more tests than anywhere else in the world. Like I do
In the
not.
world?
There was like something like they were like showing like fun facts before the event started, and they said like they did like 11,000 like something tests or something like some crazy number
Wow.
just for this Fight Island thing.
Well, I wonder, how many people are there? Like, are the fighters like, are there families there? Like, who
No,
gets invited? Who
because
gets?
one thing Usman was talking about is how he hasn't seen his daughter in 2.5 months,
Oh,
and
holy
that's like the
crap!
one thing he's like, I'm not taking a fight for a minute. Like I need to eat Thai food and watch Netflix with my daughter. That's
Wow.
literally what he said.
So then, who? I mean, did
It's like
anyone go to the?
it's like all the workers. Yeah, they actually did. This was the first time they had people in attendance. But it wasn't a big crowd. It was a very small crowd. I think there was the media, I think medical people, and then I think it was these oil princes and stuff
That
in their
were just
bays
there?
that all had been tested like 50 times over,
Oh my
and they all
god!
had socially distanced seats and whatever.
Can
It
you
was a very,
imagine?
very small crowd. I mean,
Wow!
it's pretty
Imagine being a
sick, dude. Like you have a
yeah,
private UFC event
everything to
that's
yourself.
well that, and you have this UFC event that's the second biggest one of all time, like for you and like your 10 of your boys and their girls.
Oh my god!
Quite the
Wow.
lifestyle.
And it's not like it's going away. It'll be there,
No,
and
they said they're gonna
like
come
like
back
I
and visit it. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, Jason. Maybe Bagels and Locks can one day be live from
Yeah, we'll have to
Yas
email
Island.
Dana White and see if he can hook us up with
Some
some dates.
credentials.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. You never know. But that's awesome, man. That's those. If you got to go there, if you're part of the media or just anybody on that team, you are lucky. That is awesome. Jason, we appreciate your UFC coverage as always here on Bagels and Locks. Great
Yeah.
job.
I don't try to bore you guys too much with it, but when it's an event that's the second biggest of all time behind Conor Khabib, and there's 3 titles fights, I mean, it's you got to
You're
mention
there.
it because there are people that are interested in whatever.
Yeah.
But
And it's been going on. It's the UFC's
yeah,
slowly
it's like the
been
one sport
taking
that's like
place.
been like going. Um,
Yeah.
but moving on, this is our last topic of the day. Redskins today, or excuse me, the R words today, the Washington football
Yeah.
team announced that they will retire the name and logo. We knew this was coming, that we knew they were getting a lot of pressure from their sponsors and some owners of the team. So we knew this was coming. But today was the official announcement. And what I thought was just hilarious was on the press release in which they announced that they were dropping the name and stuff, they had the logo and the name of the team at the very
Oh
top. It
my
was like a
gosh.
third of the press release at the beginning was like the Redskins logo said Redskins.
Oh my
And it was like,
gosh.
all right, like after this last thing, like this is it.
We're done.
We're
I
done.
swear we're
done.
done.
Yeah.
We're done.
And there's like a tweet about it. It said like, I love how they said shit. Like, let's just do one for the road. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow. I wonder if they even realize. Like, I mean, it's
I
like
think they
it's
did,
like a
'cause-
new year, right? Like, how many times is it like January 1st, 2020, and you're like writing a paper or something, and you write like last year, 2019. I mean, it's a bit of a big difference in this case, but it's just one of those like, oops, like you're getting used to it. Same thing with going to, shake someone's hand right in the midst of this whole virus going down.
Mhm.
But that's funny. That they had the name and the logo right at the top.
I also
Um,
saw something about why haven't they changed the name yet or like announced the name change yet? And it's
mhm.
because, and this was from, I forget his name. I was literally just looking at this tweet. I'm gonna try and pull it up here, but it was from a CBS senior NFL writer, and he said, "Why don't the Redskins have a nickname planned yet?" And it was probably because this guy who's a realtor beat them to the punch, and he trademarked every single possible Redskins nickname that was out there. So you know how they've been called, it's been possible they'd be called the Red Tails or the Red Wolves or the Monuments or the Veterans or the whatever. This guy put in a trademark a couple weeks ago for literally every single Washington, like all the rumored names. So they're going to have to buy this guy out or think of something new before they move on with rebranding the entire team because this guy owns it.
Okay, so is this guy a genius or just a total ass?
I think he's a genius.
I think so too, but I also think,
I
well,
just
no, I guess
texted it to you.
I mean, who thinks of that? Who like, and
I
how do
wish
you,
we
how do you
thought
just,
of that. We would
I
have
know, how do you just go,
could
how
have
do you
got
just
a
go about doing
freaking
that?
sweet studio. We could have.
Oh my God. So he got the Red Wolves, the Tribe, the Red Tails, the Monuments, the Veterans, Renegades, Gridiron Football, Braves Professional Football. So what, like 15 names or nicknames
Yeah, like I'm
that
telling
he
you,
has
he got
trademarked.
like all of them.
And
So
who is this guy?
they
Oh,
say
some
he's just
realtor.
some realtor in Alexandria. But
Oh
like
my
that
God.
isn't that wild. It's from Will. That's from Will Brinson. He is a CBS Sports senior NFL writer. You can find him on Twitter at Will Brinson, and you'll find the tweet there. Hosts a
Wow.
daily NFL podcast. Maybe we should get him on to talk about it.
Yeah. Right. How did he find out about this realtor trademarking all the nicknames? That's crazy. Um, wow. Well, that you would think that makes it harder for the
Oh,
Washington
of course.
team to go with the name. And so we talked about this last week too. Was what does this process look like? Because now you would think, if considering it's official that they are no longer the Redskins, this
But this
has to be done
season, yeah.
prior to the season start. And it's not like you have 8 months to get it done. You don't have very long. And now you got to get through this ding dong guy who trademarked all the nicknames, who just literally making it that much harder for them. wow, that's when you just kind of sit and think, like, who is this guy? Is he a genius? Is he an
Yeah.
ass? He likes to make it harder for them. He's made it harder for them.
I mean, they're an NFL team. They can afford it.
Yes, they can afford it.
I mean,
But
he's an opportunist. That's the word I would use.
that is something else. I'm like really stumped by it, because who would
It's
think
pretty
to
crazy.
do that? And like that turnaround time was so quick. Wow. Well,
Also,
if
before we
he's-
go, I'm just because I'm on Twitter because I pulled up that tweet. The next tweet is this. You've seen these cake memes where just everything is a cake. You've seen
No. In
these.
what-
Oh my God! Come on,
what-
dude.
DM me right now. In what
I
regard?
mean, well, this is just a meme where this guy is cutting a cake slice out of his own head. So like it's whatever, but like
what?
there's these video. It's just this one's like
This is, like,
memeing
going
it to the
around-
full level. But this is a very popular thing right now. If I find one of these videos, I'll send it to you later. But there's like these videos of like I don't even know, like it's an oyster and they cut it open and it's like a cake, or like it's like a Gatorade bottle and they cut into it and it's like a cake, or it's Walgreens antacid tablets and they,
This, and it's a cake.
yes, toilet paper and it's just a cake. And they, for whatever reason, because these have always
Oh,
there's a
that's a
plant, yeah.
That is not what I thought you were like describing.
Yeah,
When you were saying cake, soap, a towel, Crocs.
yeah, bro. I mean, it's literally everything, and it's. I knew this always became, was always a thing, but it's. Yeah. That one's hilarious. But
Always has been.
Always has been.
Oh my God.
but like this has just made the craziest resurgence, and it's got me looking at everything in life, wondering if it's a cake or not.
Oh my God. Are we cake?
That's what I'm saying. And there was this picture of this guy who like posted like his phone and his AirPods or something, and someone quote tweeted it like, "I know a cake when I see one." Like that's not the new iPhone.
Was the garbage can the Astros were banging on this whole time? Is that a cake? Is the camera out in center field a cake?
Everything's a cake, bro.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Well, Jason, I think we got to end it there, because I'm afraid anything I touch now is going to be a cake.
I'm
Hopefully when
afraid
I
to
go
stop
close my laptop
yeah.
lid. Maybe Zoom's a cake for all we know. Wow, that's awesome. I typed in C into Twitter, and the first thing that came up was cake
Yeah.
memes. Wow. Real quick, I just wanted to say I'm a big vanilla cake fan. I don't like chocolate cake.
I like
don't
cookie
really like
cakes.
ice cream cake. I love cookie cake.
All
Cookie
right.
cake is amazing, and I love vanilla cake.
Sounds like we got to
hear-
do a Rushmore of cakes some other time.
at some point. I guess we'll have to do that next week. But for now, I'm Brandon Rothenberg. This is my co-host, Jason Silverstone. Jay, we will see you next week here on Bagels and Locks. No kidding. No kidding.
Hashtag BHG, baby. Take care,
Hashtag
guys.
BHG.